Anyone who believes in indefinite growth on a physically finite planet is either mad or an economist.
We don't want to focus politics on a notion that involves the rejection of principles around which a large majority of our fellow citizens organize their lives.
We are not as endlessly manipulable and as predictable as you would think.
Please think about the furniture in your own sitting room. I'm pretty sure the chairs are arranged so you can watch the television. The day that you decide to arrange the furniture in another way is the day when I will get really worried. My father was a vicar's son. My dad hated the way that the news had an almost religious hold on us. After all, the news summoned us at fixed points of the day to be present at a particular place, looking in silence in a particular direction, with one channel even starting its 10 p.m. ceremony with the tolling of a very loud bell. Alain de Botton suggests that this quasi-religious aspect of news in the 21st century has a very specific consequence. It means that we, the public, must treat it deferentially and comply with its rituals without question or hesitation. Sounding a little bit like George Orwell, he says, and I quote, "The distinctive priorities of the news are crafting a new planet in our minds." I'm going to try to explain why de Botton has simply got it wrong, and why non-stop news services like Sky are part of the reason he's got it wrong. Far from shaping people's views, we are simply giving them the most accurate information, impartially, so that they can shape their own views. To do that properly in the 21st century, people want the most accurate information and up-to-date information, but they also want it on their terms. And that is best delivered by a 24-hour news organization that is available live and on demand in many different guises. At about the same time de Botton was publishing his book, the BBC's former director of global news, Richard Sambrook, with his ex-head of strategy, Sean Maguire, wrote a full frontal attack on 24-hour news channels. I'm delighted to say that they are here this evening. They argue that in the digital age of instant on-demand news delivered via the internet, specialist rolling news channels have had their day. But you've got it, with great respect, completely wrong. Their argument is simply too narrow and out of date. It considers an old world where it's possible to pigeonhole organizations and what they do. News organizations can no longer be categorized so easily. Sky News is not just a rolling news channel, just as The Guardian or The Times is not only a newspaper. Sky News is live and on demand 24/7. The ability to offer live coverage is a critical part of our service. You can call it a channel or a live stream. It is both the backbone and the beating heart of a non-stop news service. In today's world, customers demand to know what is happening as soon as possible, and it enables us to be distinct from our rivals. But we are so much more. We're also an on-demand service on multiple platforms, providing text, graphic, audio, and video wherever people want it. We're a service which allows our audience to consume news when they want it, how they want it, and where they want it. The pessimists who look backwards to some mythical golden age of journalism are mistaken. The golden age is now, and even more so in the future. The constant technological revolution has made this a better time to be a journalist than ever before. The range of technology available for gathering news, especially video news, continues to grow at breathtaking pace. Means that we have more tools at our disposal than ever not just to report events as they happen, but to analyse them, explain them, and put them in context. The growth of technology has also opened previously undreamed frontiers in the way news is distributed and delivered. Smartphones, tablets, connected devices, and the rest means that all news is now available non-stop, live, and on demand. The key to exploiting these multiple opportunities remains being a 24-hour service with the live stream at its core. There is now a veritable array of start-up online providers like BuzzFeed and Now This News. One of the most striking techniques employed by their new type of journalism is the listicle. It's something which combines being both a list and an article. Here is a listicle of 6 Ryley reasons to be positive about the future of news and to be positive about the future of Sky News. I will give them in reverse order. Reason number 6, why the future of journalism is positive. The world market for news is actually expanding dramatically. And you don't have to take my word for it. One of America's most prominent futurologists is Mark Andreessen, the founder of Netscape. He believes we have drastically underestimated the scale of the smartphone revolution. He says that now more people have access to phones than have access to running water. That means the global addressable market for news will grow to 5 billion by 2020. He says that market size equals destiny, and I'm certain he's right. Reason for optimism number 5, why the future of journalism is positive. Journalism remains the most effective way of holding institutions to account. I don't just mean in the sense of the very big sensational exposés like the MP expenses scandal a few years back, or the scale of state surveillance by American intelligence. I mean it in the way, day in, day out, professional journalists chip away at the public relations shields which the establishment erects around itself by asking awkward questions and unpicking the facts. When Alex Crawford was covering the Arab Spring in 2011, everywhere she went, she heard the same thing, that foreign journalists are often the only people who can credibly bear witness to what is really happening in repressive regimes with state-controlled media. My point is simply this. While journalism prospers, so does democracy. Reasons for optimism number 4, why the future of Sky News is positive. Technological change is happening so fast, it is hard to keep up. Hardware and software seem to be changing every day. At heart, though, the revolution is powered by an explosion in internet provision. The latest thing from Facebook and Google is the use of drones and balloons to spread internet connectivity in the developing world. The technology revolution has also transformed journalists' ability to tell stories. Today, we can gather news from almost anywhere, and often we can do it live, as it actually happens. Last year, our Mark Stone reported live but covertly from the North Korean capital. This was an unprecedented feat, only made possible because of some in-depth research by his cameraman into North Korea's mobile phone system. Perhaps even more remarkably, Stone reported live on camera from inside a Chinese police van after being arrested. At home, the advent of 4G has transformed the mobile phone into a miniature camera-cum-satellite truck. Our latest bit of kit is a drone equipped with a high-definition camera. It provides remarkable aerial video, closer up than a helicopter can offer, and at a fraction of the cost. We live in an era in which we've had to report far too much bloodshed. So I am quietly proud of the fact that we're using drones not as a platform for launching air-to-surface guided missiles, but as a platform for delivering precision-guided news. Reasons for optimism number 3. Why the future of Sky News is positive. This revolution in technology has not just transformed the way we gather information, it has also revolutionized how we present it and analyze it. Today, the concept of multimedia journalism is no longer some text, a few stills, and maybe a bit of video. It's an intricately woven tapestry, which is the most suitable media to tell every aspect of the story. One of the most important departments at Sky News is our graphics area, where highly skilled designers create technically complicated, yet brilliantly simple visual explainers. If there is one point in which I find myself in complete agreement with Alain de Botton, it is this. News just can't give us the facts. News must tell us what these facts really mean, using all the resources available on multi-platforms. Ed Conway, our economics editor, even devised a piece of bespoke technology to help him explain the intricacies of higher economics. It's called Conway's Console. It's an app which brings together a raft of data about how different regions in the UK are performing economically. We use it, you may have seen it regularly on air and on digital platforms to show which regions are faring well and which are faring less well. But it's also a tool which is proving very popular with our users, who can use it themselves on the web and mobile to do their own analysis. We're not doing, I believe, what de Botton accuses us of, trying to craft a new planet in the minds of the audience. In fact, we are giving our audiences the tools to discover the facts and form a view for themselves. A key advantage of non-stop news services is the scale of the canvas we have to work on. 24 hours of airtime every day, plus infinite capacity on digital platforms. For example, we've produced, under extreme time pressure, nightly reconstructions of the Hutton inquiry, when no one else could even think of doing that. We spent an entire week reporting on ordinary life in Afghanistan and provided precisely what de Botton says should be the task of foreign news. That is, and I quote, to foster our attention to what is apart from us, to facilitate mutual understanding between us and other populations. Reason for optimism number 2. Why the future of journalism and Sky News is positive. Great journalism has real value. The expanding global market for digital news includes an incredible range of appetites, from the micro niche to the very broad, a category that Sky News is very happy to be part of. Mark Andreessen, the futurologist I mentioned earlier, also says that to succeed, you need to go for maximum depth or maximum breadth. Well, I know that it's possible and necessary to do both. Accuracy and truth and depth in journalism also have real, immediate, and lasting value. News may have been swallowed deferentially and without question at some time in the past, when news was handed down like tablets of stone. But Sky News smashed that mould a long time ago. The very concept of a rolling news channel has transformed the whole relationship between broadcasters and viewers in the United Kingdom. The challenge is to provide news at any time, day or night, and it puts the viewer immediately in charge. They decide when and for how long to watch. It's up to us, the broadcaster, to grab and hold their attention. At Sky, we have learned to trust our viewers. Virtually no news breaks neatly and cleanly with all the facts available, completely verified. As soon as we hear something, our viewers do too, while at the same time we help them to understand the quality of the source. By being as transparent as possible, we trust our viewers to make their own judgments. So before Sky and the other 24-hour channels, news, whether delivered by newspaper, TV or radio bulletins, was no more than a quick snapshot of what the editors believed to be the truth, on the evidence available at the time. Back in November 1989, the night the Berlin Wall came down, I was a producer at the BBC. Arguably, it was probably the most significant story of the second half of the 20th century. The news began coming in the early evening that East Germans were free to travel anywhere in the world. Yet the BBC News began, as usual, at 9 p.m, because that was when it was scheduled to begin, and it came off air 28 minutes later. Scheduled in stone, although astonishing events were still taking place in Berlin. 24-hour news channels have changed all that. A couple of years ago, the think tank Demos reported that despite the myriad of trustworthy journalism and accurate information which is available online, there is also, and I quote, equally unprecedented amounts of mistakes, half-truths, mistruths, propaganda, misinformation, disinformation, and general nonsense. A recent survey carried out for Sky News showed that the two most important features the public wants in a news provider are high quality and impartiality, even ahead of ease of access and speed of delivery. For that reason, mainstream journalism inevitably has a strong future. Reason for optimism number one, why the future of journalism and Sky News is positive. The old strangleholds on the distribution of news have been systematically undone by disruptive technologies. The most obvious way is through growth in smartphones. This collapse in the barriers to entry has caused a democratization of news, and that has allowed in the news services like Vice. These are services which are hiring experienced journalists to create alternative streams of news. I warmly welcome them. They're devising new techniques to engage new audiences in dynamic and interesting ways. Traditional mainstream news organizations would be foolish to ignore them. In fact, we should learn from them. So much for de Botton's picture of news organizations preaching to the masses. If you needed evidence that Mark Andreessen's prediction that news consumption can only get bigger, just look at the exponential growth in the number of people who have access to Sky News on phones and tablets. The new big thing is connected devices. Last year, Sky News launched on the Apple TV and Roku platforms, which are going fast, especially in the United States. These platforms are entirely legitimate children of the internet and TV. The service comes via your broadband connection, but you watch on your television. It's literally plug and play. This is where the world of on-demand really takes off. As more and more devices are connected to the internet, more and more people can sample content live and on demand. Just last month, we launched Sky's own on-demand service, providing a range of catch-up TV news. In an on-demand world, you don't have to do any waiting at all. Choice is even broader, including regular bulletins, weekly press reviews, entertainment news, and a vault of some of the biggest news stories of the past 25 years. On-demand provides the canvas that liberates the creativity of our specialist journalists and adds more breadth and more depth at the same time to our service. What's more, when it comes to our digital services, we have accurate, real-time information about what stories our audiences are looking at and on which services. Big data like that undoubtedly help shape our journalism. But I must stress that it's just one of many factors which drive our editorial agenda. Now, I'd like to focus on the supposed demise of the 24-hour news channel. You might think that the market in news consumption has finite capacity, so if it increases on the web, it will decrease on the television. In fact, the opposite is true. More choice of platforms where you can get the news has actually expanded the market and the audience. According to the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism, as people acquire more devices, they consume more news. Mobiles are good when you're on the move. Computers work at work. And tablets and TV are best for the evenings and weekends. Nothing Nothing beats live video when something big is happening. The rolling TV news channel remains a supremely powerful, engaging, and efficient way of distributing live coverage of unfolding news events to large numbers of people, guaranteeing shared experiences that we remember. A non-stop video news service needs a production backbone. The Wall Street Journal's WSJ Live is a live programming stream which has much of the look and feel of a rolling news channel. So does HuffPost Live. Both HuffPost Live and WSJ Live are delivered via the internet only as live streams, but also as video on demand. They are effectively rolling news channels, which are not on what people traditionally call television. They have paid us the highest possible compliment by imitating us. Hence, my unshakable belief that if Sky did not have a rolling news channel, we would have had to invent it. It is the heart of all our journalism on all our platforms. It is necessary, but as I hope I have stressed, not sufficient on its own. It is merely part of a non-stop news service, albeit a massive and vital part. I visited Silicon Valley recently and returned with the conclusion that the world is now run by 22-year-olds playing pool, bouncing around in pastel-coloured offices on pogo sticks. Good luck to them. But I also returned with a renewed conviction that we must work harder than ever at staying ahead of the curve, delivering the right news on the right platforms to a diverse audience whose taste and lifestyles are constantly evolving. That is the way to make sure that we are ready, not just for next year or even the next 10 years. I mean ready for the next century. Sky News is an evolving creature. We are always looking for ways to change, simply because we thrive on it.
Is there a danger that you end up giving more coverage to those stories which are rolling news friendly than those that are not? That you have a lot of coverage of the Oscar Pistorius trial because it's continuously unfolding, but you don't give much coverage to climate change because it takes a hell of a long time for anything to happen. So explain the relationship between the prioritisation of news and the degree to which it works in a rolling news context.
So I would argue that on the whole we get it right, that we attack the stories of the day that we believe are relevant to our audiences. And often, in fact, those can be stories that are quite difficult to tell. Politics is quite a difficult story to tell. Quite often, discussions and decisions are taken away from the cameras. You don't want to show too many shots of buildings. Politics is difficult to cover. The economy is difficult to cover. I think climate change is a hard one to crack. What we did at Sky News some years back now is we dedicated an entire week to coverage of green issues and the rights and wrongs of the climate change debate. So I would say we have tackled, and we did it the same with immigration more recently, stories that may be difficult to illustrate and there are quite complex arguments either side. We can devote a long time, that big canvas I talked about, to looking at those particular issues.